I've redesigned my pages. It looks a lot better than what I had last time. You can see I've got my title, chapter titles set up. I've got my text flowing, and I've gone ahead and put a picture inside of this. This is the way a good layout should look. And when I place my images in it, it actually feels much more like a picture in itself, or a layout of a novel. Here's what we're going to do first to find all of your images. I'm going to go to the next page. We're going to do a search for in-text image. All of yours should say that, and then it'll give the name of the image and where it goes. So in this case, there should be a picture that says in text, and then there's Korea number 3. If you do a search for it, Command F. This is just what to type. In text, colon, find next. Oops. Notice I had, let's see the story. It should be the whole document. Maybe I misspelled it. Why is it not finding in text? Oh, I'm sorry. Put a colon there. No wonder. There it is. So there's another one. There's number 4, 5, 6, and this is automatically jumping to where it's at. So that's the quick way of finding what we need to find. Let's go back. Chapter 2, there it is. To place your images in here, what we want to do is we want the images to be able to follow the text that we have. If I was just to place it in here, so I'll do Command D. There's number 3 when I say OK. Remember, when you drop it in, it's going to originally follow your cursor until you click and drag and give it a text frame. It'll automatically create the text frame. That's an easy way of doing it. Otherwise, if I just dropped it in, just to remind you, and clicked once, my image is huge and I have to go back in and fumble around with resizing it. Click and drag, it'll make it the perfect size that you want. If I just make the image and I place it inside of here, what's the first issue that comes along with doing that? It's going to cover up my text images. So how do I get the text out of the way? How do I tell the text to wrap it around? Turn on Textwrap. I've got my objects selected. I can turn on Textwrap quickly, and you can see now it pushes that text down and out of the way as well. And no matter where I place it, it'll move the text and wrap around it. But I've got another issue. I've placed the image just on top of this page. If I go do something like change up the size of my font, let's say I just selected all of this that's on here and made it much smaller. We'll do something ridiculous like 9 point. It's going to move the insertion point of where I want that picture to be. And this would be extremely important if this actually pushed it to another page. If I went through and my document is 400 pages long, changed up the position of all these pictures, it's going to move them over several hundred pages, if not several dozen pages. So what I want it to do is to follow the position of exactly where that image should go. Here's how we're going to do that. I'm going to back up. I've placed my image onto here. I'm going to go to Edit and Cut. Cut it away. Grab my Type tool. And this is where I'm just going to highlight my text. I can get rid of this. And I'm going to place my cursor exactly where I want it to go. I've turned on my hidden characters for now just to show you another thing. Placing my cursor right there, if I go to Edit, Paste in Place, we're not just going to paste it, we actually want to paste it right in the place of the text frame. And I get something that looks like this. Now, it looks like nothing has happened, but if I was to move my text frame around, check out what happens with it. It's actually inserted right there in my text frame. And so right now it's going to follow wherever my text is inside of the frame. And if I went and selected my text, it's actually selected a bunch of it, so I'll move it around. Let's do a lot more before as well. Select my text, change the size of it to something smaller. It stays in the right place. In this case, then suddenly, and then here's where the image would be. Let's actually make it something, if I got rid of all of this text. Yeah, like erased away different things. It'll stay in line with the text as well. Make sense? This is called an anchored image. It's actually anchored right there with the text that I'm working with. Undo what I did. But there's some other issues that I have. It's still covering up all of the text that I have on top of it. You can move this around. You can use your selection, select the text frame. If I was to drag this down, especially since I have Textwrap turned on, you can see it pushes that information out of the way. Now if I turn Textwrap off, here's what it looks like. It's still not going to act correctly. So check out what I have. Do you see the stacking order? It's the image is in front of all of the text that came before it, but it's behind all of the text that comes after it. Okay? The reason that's important is because when I'm going to even scale this down, you'll see the effect of it. When I turn on my Textwrap, it will only affect the text that's after my insertion point. So let's turn on text wrapping. You can see now it's only wrapping to that text. It's not going to wrap to that text. I have no way of changing that up. This is just the way InDesign is actually set up. This is a common problem. But for the most part, this is pretty much all you want to do. You can change the size of your image. We'll make it fill up that area. Bring it down. Now no matter what I do, even if I was to add extra lines, it will stay nice and in line with my text, and it will push this stuff out of the way as well. I can move this around a lot more. If I choose my selection tool, I can move it up. That's not going to help me. I can move it down, but I can't move it any farther than that particular point. If I try moving down, it stops right there. I can move it left and right, and it doesn't move anywhere. By default, it's going to stay in line with that particular that line insertion point that I created. Does that make sense? Have I lost anybody on that? I'll do another one just to show you as well. Also pay attention to what I have. I've got a little gap there. Why do I have a little gap there? Why can't I make it bigger and get rid of that?
Is it because it was tabbed over?
Exactly. That's my first line indentation. It's treating this almost like a character. If I choose my type tool and click right here, check out my first line indent. Set it to 1/8 of an inch. If I set that to 0, then I can actually move it over and place it right there. This is usually just what you want to do. You want to make it wide enough to fit your page and to stay in with it. Let me do the next one and I'll show you how to further customize it. So I'm going to do a search for in-text. So here's number 1. Let's do number 4. So here's in-text number 4. I'll get rid of that. This will be my insertion point. First thing we need to do, make a text frame, or actually I'm just going to drop it in. Choose number 4. Click and drag. This one's going to be a little bit taller of an image. If I wanted, I can go ahead and make it the size of my page. We're going to cut it, edit and cut, or Command X. Use your type tool to place it, paste in place right here. Go to edit, paste in place. Option Shift Command V is the keyboard shortcut. And it's now pasted in place right there. I don't have text wrapping turned on, so I'll turn it on. And now, wherever I move my text, it'll be placed right where it needs to go. Unfortunately, keep in mind, it's going to not stay at the top, so I do need to manually position this down here. It's bumped over, so this is where I would want to get rid of my first line indent. Oh, come on. Well, why is it not moving? Oh. Okay, we'll worry about that later. If I do want to place this anywhere on the page, let's say I really did want it to be not at the top, but actually towards the bottom of my page, and change it up. I can select my image, go to Object, all the way down to my anchored object, which in this case is my picture, and open up the options for it. You don't have to do this, but it gives you a little bit more flexibility. Here's what you can do. By default, it's always going to be in line with where you put your insertion point. If you choose Custom, you can start moving it around the page. I've got Preview turned on. There's a lot of things to play around with. To be honest, I don't use this very much, so I'm just going to kind of wing what I see here. But if you set it relative to the spine, so it'll change up whether it's on the left or the right side. And I've always set this instead of my text frame. So like right now, if I move my text frame around, you can see it stays with where my frame is. But if I go back and open my options, make sure you select your object first. I can set it to relative to the page edge itself. And I also want to turn on or turn off prevent manual setting. With page edge, this allows me to place it anywhere on my page, and I can also move around my text frame. And you can see it'll try to move, but it'll actually reposition it back on the page itself. So what I've done, and I've given this to you in the instructions, is how to turn on full control of where it's going to be on the page. So in this case, if I wanted it to be, for whatever reason, down here at the bottom corner, notice this little character, the little yin character that's up there. This is my anchor. This is actually telling Illustrator where to place my image that it's at. So everything has to be relative to this. But I can move my text around and type around. Won't go anywhere. I can actually move my insertion point to another page. So let's say I got rid of this bit of text. Delete it away. You can see because my little yin symbol changed on here, it jumped to the other page. Does that make sense? Okay. The reason I show you that, you're probably not going to use it for yours, but in the future, if you need to be able to customize where you want to put your images and keep it in line with that, you do need to open up your anchor point options to be able to do that. For the most part, you're just going to be doing the first sections of placing these images into your book exactly where it is on the in your page as well. I recommend doing this after you've set up your body copy. You don't want to be changing up your body copy too much. You want to have that nice and set, then put your images in, and then adjust your text as necessary. Cool? Okay. That's it for today as far as setting up the inside pages of your book. I'm going to turn it over to y'all, let y'all kind of work on doing those inside pages. If you're ready to insert your images, you can do that.